I just want to say something firstly, before I get into this video, that these videos, I know the government doesn't like me doing, law enforcement don't like me doing these type of videos, and YouTube I'm getting 1 or 2 views on this type of video at the moment on YouTube. So if you're watching this, if you do see this, please subscribe to Voice in the Wilderness Australia channel, and please share this video out and make YouTube see that people are interested in this type of activity and this type of things that our governments are getting into and getting up to. So please help me get this channel out, help me get this information out, because I need you as much as Australians need this information. Thanks. There's a story unfolding in the deserts of the northeast of Syria that many Australians know about, that many have just started ignoring it, but they shouldn't, because what happens there may not stay there. Inside camps like Al-Hol and Al-Roj, I think they're called, excuse my pronunciation, thousands of women and children connected to the Islamic State have been held since the fall of the so-called caliphate of 2019. And here's the question that nobody seems to want to sort of wrestle with honestly. What happens if some of those are already radicalised and they come back to Australia? I want to know that. And journalists who have recently entered these camps in Syria have reported something deeply troubling as well. But not all mainstream media have shown that to the public. Now, we're seeing children, not toddlers, but older kids and teenagers, shouting threats, glorifying violence, repeating extremist slogans. Some reportedly telling the Western reporters they would kill them if they could. And they were doing the fingers across the throat action, which we know so well now. Now, this isn't normal playground behaviour from kids. This is ideological conditioning already at that age. Now, one reporter described being surrounded by children who were hostile. They were aggressive and unapologetically aligned with extremist narratives.
One day I hope to kill you. One day I want to slit your throat. They're all making very, very threatening gestures. So this is the culture that they're being brought up in, where anyone who's a foreigner saying, we hope you're going to die, we're going to slaughter you one at a time. The worst kind of ISIS mentality, rhetoric is the culture here. One of them just came up, looked at me and went like this. Well, we know what that means. The sign, this one they keep putting up, this was the old ISIS symbol. One, meaning one God, one religion, one faith, one leader, symbol of unity and power. These boys are all behaving very threateningly. They were all saying, one day I hope to kill you, one day I want to slit your throat. They're all making very, very threatening gestures. So this is the culture that they're being brought up in, where anyone who's a foreigner saying, we hope you're going to die, we're going to slaughter you one at a time. The worst kind of ISIS mentality, rhetoric is the culture here.
And these aren't isolated whispers. Multiple outlets, including Reuters and The Guardian, have documented how extremist ideology continues to circulate inside these camps. Now, the camps are technically guarded by the Syrian Democratic Forces, but they themselves have warned that radical networks still operate inside those camps. So let's be clear, this is not simply a humanitarian holding area. It is in parts an incubator of evil. Now bring that home. Australia's already repatriated some women and children from these camps. Others remain there. Political pressure rises and falls. Legal battles continue. And many Australians ask the same question. If someone has spent formative years in an environment saturated with extremist ideology, what does that mean for long-term security? We cannot pretend ideology evaporates at the airport gate. Radicalisation, especially when embedded in identity during their childhood, doesn't just disappear because the passport is issued, regardless of what Anthony Albanese, Tony Burke and Penny Wong say. It does not disappear because they've been offered or issued an Australian passport and being repatriated to Australia. Think about the psychological reality of this. Some of these children have witnessed executions of Westerners. Some lost fathers in combat fighting Western forces. Some were raised being told that Western nations, including Australia, are enemies of Allah. That narrative, repeated daily, it shapes their worldview. Even if they never personally committed violence, immersion in that belief system does matter. It sticks. And security experts consistently warn that de-radicalisation is a complex course. It requires long-term intervention, surveillance, psychological rehabilitation, and community monitoring. My question is, who's going to monitor those kids for the rest of their life in case they become, or they're coming back as sleepers? Now, that's not fear-mongering, that's historical reality. We've seen it in Europe, what happens when radical news, when radical networks are underestimated. We've seen lone actor attacks carried out by individuals who absorbed ideology long before they acted. Years, decades. And we must ask ourselves honestly, are we really prepared for that? Are our communities, are our schools, our churches, our functions prepared for that? And we're not, this isn't about punishing the kids. They were put there by their evil mothers and fathers into that situation. And those mothers are coming back here as well. And they're the ones we need to watch. They chose to join the caliphate. And now it's all getting too much for them. They want to come back here. I say no. It's about acknowledging that ideology has consequences. There are three uncomfortable truths here. Well, there's more, but the three main ones. Firstly, some individuals in these camps remain committed to extremist beliefs, no matter what they say to the world. Secondly, children raised in that environment may internalise those beliefs deeply. And thirdly, Australia has limited experience managing large-scale ideological rehabilitation of this nature. We've never had to do it before. We shouldn't have to do it now. It's one thing to bring home citizens. It's another thing to manage generational trauma combined with militant theology. Some argue compassion alone is the answer. Compassion is vital, yes. But compassion without caution is just so naive. A nation has a God-given responsibility to protect its people. And yes, I say God-given because Australia was raised on Christian principles, not Islamic principles. And borders exist for a reason. Laws exist for a reason. Security screening exists for a reason. But at the moment, people like Tony Burke and Anthony Albanese are sort of put the screening out the door when they let all these pro-Palestinians in, or the Palestinian refugees in, without vetting them completely. We're seeing that now with the violence that's growing, as it is in the UK, as it is in France, Spain, Portugal, everywhere, Denmark even. If individuals return who have not renounced extremist ideology or who quietly maintain it, we risk planting seeds of future instability. Now, that's not being prejudiced. That is being prudent. Australia has been blessed with relative peace compared to much of the world. We're not perfect, no, but we have not endured the sustained terror campaigns that we see elsewhere in those countries that I've just named. Why? Because historically, we have taken national security seriously. The danger is not immediate mass invasion. It's the long, slow march. The danger is slow, ideological infiltration. I saw a video the other day, I'm going to repost it on my channel, about many Muslims saying to Westerners, like in Denmark, say, Your country's got 5 million people. You have 1 or 2 children. We are Muslim. We have 5, 10 children. Your country has 5 million people. Soon you will be annihilated and Islam will rule. Now, I take note of that. I think everyone should take note of that because that's a threat. And we're seeing it everywhere. It only takes a handful of committed radicals to inspire others online here, to recruit, to spread grievance narratives, to justify their violence. In the age of encrypted messaging and global digital networks, ideology travels faster than ever without being seen, except by the people who want to see it. So inside these camps, some teenagers have reportedly expressed admiration for attacks carried out against Westerners in the past. If that mindset is not confronted, dismantled, and transformed, it doesn't simply dissolve. It matures. Their radicalisation matures. Whether they're in here, in Australia, going to a public school, a private school, whatever. But you can guarantee that that's festering in their mind. Now, let me say this clearly to you. When ideology matures without challenge, it does harden. Not every returnee will pose a threat to us, but ignoring the possibility that some are deeply influenced would be irresponsible of us. This is where mature national leadership is required, and we're not getting it from the coward we have in power at the moment. And I don't personally think Pauline Hanson will be any better. Repatriation must come with intensive psychological evaluation, long-term monitoring, clear enunciation of extremist ideologies, for whatever that may mean, and community safeguards and transparent public communication. Australians deserve honesty, not slogans from Tony Burke or Albanese. If we fail to handle this carefully, 2 dangers emerge. The first danger is security failure. The second danger is social fracture of our communities. Because if an incident occurs involving someone who was knowingly brought back without proper safeguards, public trust will collapse. Communities will polarize, and that division itself becomes fuel for extremism.
The election of somebody like Mamdani, it is a game changer. We need somebody like Mamdani to be the mayor of New York. And that is a victory for the ummah. I'm jumping the gun here, but this is one of the narrow-mindeds that need to break here. And if you don't understand this, then honestly you need to rethink through your understanding of civilizational strength. Our biggest weakness is our percentage in this country. We are very disadvantaged. By the way, this is only in this country, because across the Western world, mashallah, tabarakallah, percentages are rising to the point that it's terrifying them. Sweden, 10% Muslim. Oslo, Norway, 10% Muslim. Oslo, of all places. Vienna, the Ottoman Turks tried 200 years, they couldn't do anything. Vienna is 10% Muslim, mashallah, tabarakallah. 10% Muslim. England, London, it is estimated 20%. I was in Australia a year and a half ago. Australia, Sydney, there are districts the size of maybe half of Austin that are 60% Muslim.
They can be as mad as they want. I don't care. America will be a Muslim country. Russia will be a Muslim country. Islam will enter every house, inshallah.
All right.
But we have to be a part of that change. We have to be a part of that da'wah. We have to be a part of those ghuraba who stand firm on our aqeedah and our practice and our deen and never ever apologize. We're unapologetic. Never ever compromise. We're uncompromising.
Let's not make this about fear. Let's make it about wisdom. We are stewards of the nation our forefathers built. A country shaped by sacrifice, law, and ordered liberty. And freedom. Security is not cruelty. Discernment is not hatred. Boundaries are not oppression. A strong nation protects its people while offering mercy wisely, not recklessly. Now, the camps in Syria are a tragic consequence of a violent ideology that devastated entire regions. But tragedy does not remove responsibility. If Australia chooses to bring individuals home from environments where extremist beliefs have flourished, then we must be prepared to address the full reality of what that means. We can't afford denial. We can't afford sentimentality over strategy. We certainly can't afford complacency, which is what our government is full of, because history teaches a hard lesson. Ideology ignored does not fade. It just waits the long, slow march. Now, there's a phrase in intelligence agencies that I used earlier, and that we should make every responsible citizen in Australia sit up straight. It's that word, sleeper. Now, they're not saying it loud. They're not waving a flag about it. They're not making threats online. Sleepers are quiet. They are blending in. They are waiting. They're sitting next to you in the classical music concert. They're standing next to you in the shopping aisle. And some of them are even sitting next to you in your church. Now, history shows something sobering. The greatest danger to any nation is not always the obvious enemy at the gate. It's the radicalised mind already within the insides of the walls. We've seen this pattern before. Individuals who appeared integrated into Western society later carried out devastating attacks, not because they suddenly snapped, but because they were ideologically committed long before they acted, decades before in some instances. Now, groups like Islamic State and Al-Qaeda have openly encouraged this strategy. Blend in, wait, strike when we instruct it, or when opportunity presents itself. The tactic isn't new. It's patient warfare. Ask anyone who's been in the Australian Army, especially in a combat role or in a infantry role. Because they know the strategies of what this enemy does. And Australians don't have to look overseas to understand how fragile public safety can be. What happened at Westfield Bondi Junction shook the nation. Ordinary people going about their day, families, shoppers, workers. Yet even after tragedies like that, we still hear security services quietly warn about radicalisation risks. And too often politicians soften the language. They delay the action, as we saw with those two from Bondi. Tony Burke ignored ASIO's warnings, or they avoid the hard conversations altogether because they put it in the too hard basket. Warnings are only useful if leaders are willing to act on them. And I say the word leaders in our government's aspect with just, they're not leaders. And mark my words, when we have these people in our nation, no Christian's safe, no Jew is safe, and no gay person is safe. Even though you see gays for Palestine and that, no gay person is safe with these people. Radicalisation is not just anger. It's not just political disagreement. It is deeply rooted belief that violence is justified, even righteous, in pursuit of their cause. When someone of any age absorbs that sort of worldview, it reshapes their moral compass, if they've even got a moral compass left after that. Because right becomes wrong. Wrong becomes holy. And that inversion is what makes sleeper threats so dangerous, is they don't see themselves as criminals. I think it's 20-something of these people that the government's bringing back are children. How many of those have been radicalised to the stage where they're sleepers? They're coming back as sleepers. Because they don't see themselves as criminals. They see themselves as obedient to Allah and to the Quran. Think about the psychological mechanics of it. A sleeper doesn't need constant orders. All they need is a little bit of conviction, a lot of conviction in their heart and in their mind festering away. And if a triggering event happens, a geopolitical conflict, a perceived insult to their ideology, or a call from an overseas network, that internal clock starts ticking like a time bomb. Sometimes there is no phone call to them. Sometimes the alarm is ideological, not digital. Online propaganda, encrypted chat rooms, underground forums. Modern technology allows radical networks to whisper across borders without ever boarding a plane. Western nations value openness, and that openness can be our downfall. Freedom, we value freedom of movement. That can be our downfall. We offer freedom of speech. We need that. We offer freedom of religion. We also need that, but we need to watch. These are our strengths. But when radicalized individuals exploit those freedoms while secretly despising the very system that protects them, that strength can become vulnerability. It only takes one determined individual to cause irreversible harm. We've witnessed attacks carried out by people who lived quietly for years, working jobs, attending school, attending college, appearing ordinary to everyone around them, until the day they weren't. That unpredictability erodes public confidence and it strains social cohesion. We see the governments making laws about social cohesion now. Social cohesion in Australia does not include these possible radical sleepers. These people that this government spruiking social cohesion is bringing back into our communities, bringing the danger into our communities. But let's be careful. Not every returnee from a conflict zone is radicalised. I said that before. Not every angry young person is a future extremist. So many young people these days are confused and they're being attacked and indoctrinated from all different angles. And I'm not saying that it's just these violent Islamists that are radicalised. It's the transgender ideology as well. They're radicalising these young people. And suspicion alone cannot become policy. When our silence becomes a weapon against us, we need proper vetting. We need security that uses discernment, but they don't use naive optimism. We need long-term monitoring. We need de-radicalisation programs that are serious, not symbolic. Intelligence cooperation between the nations, because ideology doesn't dissolve simply because someone relocates geographically. Belief travels. Radicalisation travels with the believer, with the traveller. There's another layer people don't often discuss openly. Sleeper threats aren't only physical. They can be ideological multipliers. Someone radicalised doesn't need to carry out violence personally to be dangerous. They can recruit, they can influence, they can inspire, they can fundraise, they can translate propaganda, provide logistical support. Movements survive on networks, not just individuals, and networks grow quietly. Western nations must walk the narrow road. We must remain just, not paranoid, but firm, not oppressive. We cannot ignore patterns that history has already shown us. Security failures rarely happen because there were no warning signs. As Bondi, the warning signs were there. ASIO warned the government. The ministers in the government chose to ignore it. The idea of a sleeper is unsettling because it challenges a comforting assumption. The danger is obvious. It's not. It isn't always. It can be hidden in plain sight. And sometimes it is patient. And wisdom means acknowledging that reality without surrendering to fear. Strong nations don't panic, but they also don't need to pretend. They protect their people. They uphold their laws. And they understand that safeguarding freedom sometimes requires vigilance against those who would use it as a cover. And we don't know who the government's bringing back and what their future intentions are through what they've been taught and trained to already. Now, this is a conversation Australia needs to have openly, soberly, and courageously. And even if the people of Australia have this conversation without the politicians, because the politicians, I'm sorry, are just plain stupid. How should Australia balance mercy and national security? That's the question. Subscribe for a more in-depth analysis. And if you found this important, please share it. Like I said to you at the beginning of the video, leave your thoughts below. How should Western nations balance liberty and security in an age of ideological extremism? Stay informed, stay watchful in order to stay safe, my friends. I'm Brian, and I am the voice in the wilderness. Bless you.